This is Shoots and Scores Hockey Talk, where we talk everything hockey. I am John.
I'm Mike.
I'm Chris.
All right, guys, let's go. Now we got a lot of stuff to cover, so I'm going to move right along here. Now, our first topic this evening is I want to start off with Cale Makar from the Avalanche. As a defenseman, Makar has 27 goals this year. He's 7 goals ahead of the second place, Zach Werenski. So, I mean, defenseman getting 20 goals, 27 goals, that's pretty darn good in the NHL today. Now, the last time an NHL defenseman had 30 plus goals in a season was 2008, 2009, Mike Green from the Capitals. And before that, it was 1992 93, Kevin Hatcher, also from the Capitals. He had 34 goals that year. Now, my question for you guys is Makar the best overall defenseman right now in the NHL? And if you're going to say he isn't, who would you rather have? Mike, let's start with you.
Yeah, Cale Makar, without a doubt, is the best defenseman in the NHL. Um, you can't find defensemen that put up the points like he does anymore. And with that being said, I mean the team that he's on makes makes it a little bit easier for him, considering he's playing with McKinnon and Hitchcock now had Rantanen. So I mean they were pretty stacked off the get go. Um, So without and you're not going to see 30 goal defensemen very often. So yeah, Cale Makar, without a doubt, best defenseman in the NHL, and I don't even really think it's that close.
Okay. What do you say, Chris?
Yep, no, I agree. His skating is at another level that most
Yeah,
people cannot, and what he can do with that skating. And you got to think this guy. He just shows you don't have to go to junior hockey, right? He played in the Alberta Junior Hockey League, right? And he was lighting it up, but then people doubted him because of the level of competition. And yeah, it just shows if you're good enough, they'll find you, right? You don't have to follow the path that uh, everyone else does, right? But no, his skating's elite, his vision, he can shoot. Yeah, the top guy out there for sure.
When uh, when I was over at Clodes last week, we were talking about this very thing, and I was telling him, I said, "Man, there's been no defenseman with 30 goals since 2008, 2009," and he wasn't. Well, he was quite surprised, and even I was surprised when I saw it. I'm like, "Man, that's a long time ago to go with 30 goal scorers," but it is rare. So if Makar wasn't around, let's just say, would you take Werenski as number two?
you know, it's a tough call. Depends on what you're looking for, and
Yep.
you
He's not as
know,
good defensively, right?
well,
Correct.
I mean, he's injury prone. I mean, this year he's been pretty good though, but every
Yep.
year he's hurt a lot. So it's really a question of, do you want a guy that is going to get you pretty much close to a point a game, or do you want someone that's going to be a little bit more durable uh, and maybe have a little bit more of a physical player as well, as opposed to just the point. So it's a tough call. All depends on the team and the makeup and what you're looking for, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't
Chris?
even really know right off the top of my head who I would want to say would be my next guy in line, I guess.
So Makar is that much better than everybody else.
I think so. I mean, if you're looking at points perspective, I think Adam Fox would probably be the number two, but that's debatable.
Chris?
Yeah, Orensky has some. Most of the other guys have defensive issues, right? And that's when it comes up about the whole Norris Trophy talk, right? Is it the best offensive defenseman or the best defenseman? Period, right? Both
Right.
ways.
Yep.
But yeah, Fox is pretty good defensively, even though sometimes the size, he can get overrun. But Quinn Hughes is a pretty special offensively, not bad defensively. But if you're talking about defense, well, it's going to be my boy Jacob Slavin, right? There's you proved that in the Four Nations that you know don't sleep
Chris.
on Mr. Slavin.
All right. Well, before Chris loses his mind, we better go on to the second topic here.
Well, before you do go on to the next topic, just to put this in perspective, you're talking Cale Makar's 27 goals right now.
Yes.
The highest scoring Flyer defenseman has 28 total points. So, you know, what a difference he would be if he was on that that team, and they could have had him in the draft year. They decided to pick the great Nolan Patrick instead of Cale Makar, and yeah, you can see how well that's worked out with the
It's
Flyers.
worked out really well for the Flyers, obviously.
First round strategy of picking busts. So,
All right, second topic. You're going to have lots of time, Mike, to gripe about the Flyers here in a few minutes, so
sure I
just hold
will.
on. We have to talk a little bit about the St. Louis Blues, though. Now, Tuesday night, the Blues really, and I watched this game, they really smacked the Canadians around in St. Louis, a 6-1 game, and they looked good doing it. Now, this team is hot at 8-1-1 in their last 10. It might even be 8-1-0 in their last 10 now because they won the other night, I believe. And they move up in the Western Conference, any do you think? Or now that we've brought them up, like we brought up Columbus a couple of weeks ago, are they just going to fall apart? Now, what do you think, Chris?
No, they're legit. You know, we last week talked about the big Vancouver game. They won that one. Montreal coming in smoking hot. They beat them. Um, and like we talked about last week too, like the analytics show that a complete turnaround since the coaching change, right? Bringing in Montgomery over Bannister. They've tilted the ice. They're analytic darlings now, and yeah, they're looking really good, and they're pretty much a lock now for a playoff spot. Now it's all about positioning.
Yeah, you sent me a tweet from X. Now I forget the gentleman's name now.
Jay Fresh.
Jay Fresh at Jay Fresh at
Yep.
Jay Fresh Hockey. I'm going to link this as we're talking about this. I'm going to put the poster up or the post up so that you can see it.
Yeah,
Mike,
because it shows how they were getting outchanced and outscored
outchanced
under
and outscored.
Bannister, and then it totally flipped with Montgomery, which has led to all the winning they're performing now, and now they're up there with the top outchancing, outscoring teams: Tampa, Dallas, Carolina, Vegas, the Oilers, Colorado. Right, they're right there with those guys, and those are the top teams in the league.
So what do you think about all this, Mike? Are the Blues going to just continue on?
Yeah, they're like Chris said, they're a lock for this playoff spot now. However, moving up any further, it's going to be extremely difficult just because of the hole they had put them in off the get go, and they're, I think, 6 points or 7 points behind Colorado, who's the next team in front of them. And with so few games left, I don't think they can go any higher in the standings. So they're going to finish probably right where they are. But yeah, like Chris said, teams firing on all cylinders. They're getting the goaltending from both goalies. The defense is contributing. You got Fowler, Falk, Broberg. Like they're putting points up, so they're being very consistent. And the lines that they have, like the first through third lines, they're all scoring. And the fourth line is playing their role perfectly. They've got some pretty heavy hitters on the fourth line, and Toropchenko, he's the physical guy. Bolduc is a little physical, but he's playing more up on the top three lines now. Scoring is very spread out, makes a huge difference. I mean, they can check the Robert Thomas line all they want, but the second and third line's just going to get some goals as well. So
The thing that what I find really interesting is now they were saying on TSN the other day, and I forget, I think it might have been Jamie McLennan that was on there a few nights ago, and he was saying the way Vancouver was looking, that their destiny is to get that 8th spot. So on TSN, they're thinking it's going to be Vancouver. Now, Vancouver's looked better lately, and Demko's actually playing in nets and winning. So it might be close. You guys don't think so? No? No?
Sorry, Jamie. Sorry, Jay McLennan, but no.
yeah, I don't see Vancouver getting that spot either.
Okay. Well, we're going to go on to our third topic, and that is Tortorella and how he was fired from the Flyers, I guess, this morning, replaced by associate coach Brad Shaw. The Flyers gave up 7 goals in their last 2 games. Probably not good. Tortorella said, and I quote, "It's my job to prepare this team in this type of situation. Haven't done a good job the past couple of games." That's the whole quote from Tortorella.
Yeah.
The Flyers are 1-10-1 in their last 12 games and have not won in regulation since February the 25th. Not good. In 23 seasons as head coach, Torts was 770, 648, 165 with 37 ties, and is sixth all time on the NHL with 1,620 games coached. Mike, should Tortorella have been fired? And will he get another job in the NHL?
Uh, I hate to say he should have been fired, but he clearly was not the right fit for this team. I think coming to Philadelphia off the get go, I was a little surprised because he didn't really seem to be the coach for this style of team. However, with that being said, I mean, he did put a lot of work in to get this team back into working hard and being a tougher team to play against because I'll be honest with you, they've done better than what I thought they were going to do, even more so last year than this year. This year, they're pretty much playing the way I was expecting. Last year, they overachieved, even though they didn't make the playoffs. So, it's more or less what he did there was to develop the culture of getting the hardworking style of play in. They really lack talent on that team. They've got two players, Konechny and Michkov, and other than that, it's pretty much third line guys for the most part. So is he gonna? I'm disappointed that he's gone because I love Tortorella. I love his coaching style. And him as a person. I mean, he does a lot of stuff with dog rescues down there in the States. So it's kind of a soft spot for me. Is he gonna get another job in the NHL? I don't know. Tough to say. He's aging, and I'm not sure if he wants to or not. But if the opportunity were to come up, I'm sure he would take it. But his coaching style is a dying breed, so it's tough to say.
Chris, what do you think? Should he have been fired?
Based on the comments that came out after the last game,
Yeah,
it almost seems like he was checked out.
yeah,
Um,
It
I,
sure looked like he was.
yeah, I was surprised 3 years ago when the Flyers hired him. I was surprised before that when Columbus hired him when they had Patrick Laine on the team. Right? It's one of those like the players and the coach. You knew there was going to be problems. Um, I think Torts is a coach that if you do have a hardworking team and you're ready and you're a playoff team and you're looking to win the cup, he might be the guy to bring in. But on rebuilding, retooling teams, yeah, maybe you're trying to get a work ethic going, but eventually that just doesn't work if you don't have the talent, right? And I like Torts because that last few years, every time Carolina beat the Flyers, he always came out and said, "You know what? That's how we have to play. That's how we got to play every time, every win. It's like we got to be more like Carolina. That's how we got to play. We got to play tough. We got to play the boards." So I enjoyed his talk after those games, but yeah, I find the fit with him recently with Columbus and Philly wasn't right, and I think if someone hires him, you got to have a team that's ready to go and do some damage in the playoffs. He might be that guy, but short term, yes. Long term, I just don't see it.
Well, it seems to me like the players quit on him. 1-10-1 in their last 12 games. I mean, come on now. That's pretty awful when you've basically been a 500 team all year. I mean, that's nowhere near 500. And let's be honest, like Mike said, this team is not a good team. It
Yeah, I
is
think
a bunch of third liners.
I heard some chatter. I think too. Some of the players were disappointed, just losing Frost and Farabee, right? I think
yeah.
those forwards have been together for a while, right, in that team, and it
Mhm.
sounds like they weren't too happy about losing those guys too, right? So
Yeah,
Well,
but I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at and I think I mentioned it last week, when you look at the production of Frost and Farabee, even in Calgary, it's been basically what they were doing in Philadelphia, so they
yeah,
haven't improved. Scott
it's
yeah,
Laughton,
no,
anemic.
yeah, no, I'm not saying a player with that. I think it's just the dressing room, right? You lose those
exactly, yeah, for
guys,
sure.
you lose Lawton.
Yeah,
They're like,
Laughton
okay,
was
there's no playoffs this year, and then Torts is like, I can't, yeah, I can't push them anymore because they're, the team itself is
yeah,
probably
the
ready for
team
the
is
off
probably
season.
checked out. So,
Yeah,
and
Good.
I guess Lawton was a big part of the locker room. So, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of Scott Lawton as a player. To me, I think he should be better than what he was. But Sometimes these guys settle into a role, and I mean his ideal role is a third line center, um, playing up on the second line and that sort of stuff. What he was asked to do in Philadelphia sometimes is and get points. It's not going to happen. He's like basically a career 40 to 50 point guy at best. He's never going to be uh, a point producer. So you either accept him for what he is, but that's the thing. Like with the Flyers, when you look over the years, all of the first round picks that they've had, it's they've all turned into like grinders, like or third line players. Frost, Farabee, Forster, um, Lawton. They just don't get offensive players in the first round, and it's not because they're not available. It's because they choose to pick grit and harder workers as opposed to skill. And this is why the team is where it is. You need to have a blend of both. So if you don't have some skill on your team, this is what happens.
All right. Okay. Well, let's go on to the fourth topic. And fourth topic is lately it seems goalie interference calls have become more controversial. Several instances have come up in the last couple of weeks, especially. And there's the one with the New York Islanders and Patrick Waugh that I saw specifically. And I want to know why all of a sudden this has become such an issue. I mean, the rule for goalie interference hasn't changed this year. Why all of a sudden now? What gives with all this stuff? Chris, what do you think? What the heck's going on?
Goalie interference. Offsides, they get it right. I will agree with that. Even though sometimes there's some great goals scored, and you're like, come on, yeah, a couple inches, give it to them. Goalie interference, just like VAR in soccer, where they get an opportunity to stop, review it, supposedly make the right decision. It's a coin flip. It's literally a coin flip because you're asking one or two guys, say, what's your opinion? What's your biases on the rules on what is goalie interference or not?
Right.
I know personally with Carolina, I believe they went 12 or 13 goalie interferences in a row against them. Either they challenged for it or the other team, and in a row. I think it was 2 weeks ago we finally got one. And it was one of those ones of like, there's no way they're calling that goalie interference. And luckily it went Carolina's way. But it's flip a coin. The Islander game,
Yes.
100% not goalie interference. That is brutal. I agree with Patrick Roy. If Toronto doesn't want to make a call, why are they there? Like the guy sitting in that room, I don't know what he's thinking. Um, that's going to be their lead case on guys. We need to figure this out. This is bad. It's really bad.
Mike?
Yeah, I totally agree. Goalie interference, it's it's interpreted based off of the opinion of people without like Chris said, with offside, it's fact or fiction. Like you can see whether it's offside or not when you look at a replay. When you're looking at goalie interference, it's okay, did he make contact with the goalie and then did the goalie have time to reset and make a save? Well, how much time is that? And that's the thing is some of these guys are thinking, oh, he didn't have enough time to reset, whereas others might say, yeah, he did. So it's really interpretation, and you're never going to get any consistency with it. Like Chris said about Patrick Roy, he's totally right, and he was a goalie. Like back in the '80s, that would have been called a goal when he was playing in the '80s and the '90s, and I guess maybe the 2000s. I guess he did play for a while. So, but that would have been called a goal without question. Um, Back then, goalie interference was more so if you're touching the goalie when the puck goes in the net, then they would call it goalie interference. However, now with the rules are if you touch the goalie and then you get out of the way and then it goes in, they could still call it just because there was contact made prior to the goal going in. So it's one of these rules that very frustrating. Like when you watch it, and then it delays the game forever because they got to check how many different replays and get however many different opinions on it. But Yeah, like Patrick Roy's right, and it screwed them over, and could end up costing them a playoff spot. We'll see. I mean, because they're right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
The worst part, I'd say, with this goalie interference is that one, Palmieri never went in the blue ice.
Yeah,
Two, the goalie reached out to engage him. Three, the goalie then brings the glove back, set for the shot, doesn't see it, so it goes in. I'm completely lost on how they took that goal away.
Well, I think they just made a bad call. I think if it would have that exact same play on a different night, it could have been called totally differently.
Yeah. Whoever's sitting in
absolutely.
Toronto probably should not be sitting in that war room going forward.
Probably
Like,
they probably won't be.
no.
So I got a couple of things I want to add to this. One, this whole goalie interference thing reminds me of pass interference in the NFL, right? It's different depending on the refereeing crew,
Yeah.
right? Different crews call it different ways. So it's kind of the same as
And
that.
depending on the teams, I think
And
sometimes too.
yeah,
So
that's true.
Well,
And
there's
two,
analytics. There's analytics on that, right? For referees in NFL football,
I
right?
know
They
there
know
is.
who calls the most penalties, and
Yep.
you kind of
Well,
before the game starts, like a couple
the
days before
teams
the
know.
game, they know who the referee is, and like, oh boys, okay, get ready for 20 holding penalties in the offensive line, and other guys go out there and like you get one or two.
Number two, I think because several teams are close to being in playoff spots or are barely in playoff spots, when goalie interference happens and there's any kind of a questionable event over it now at the end of the season, it makes more news in the news. It's talked about more in the news because it matters. It could be the difference between making the playoffs and not making the playoffs. Whereas, 25 games into the season, less people care. So anyway, just
And
my take on it.
and you can also add Whitey for fantasy hockey league owners too, right? When you need an assist and the guy passes the puck and they rule it offside and you lose that assist. Yeah, tough times.
Tough times in hockey. All right, let's go on to the fifth topic. And that is something we don't normally talk about, and that's why I wanted to bring it up tonight, is the Los Angeles Kings. And I want to give them some credit here, how they have moved into fifth spot out west ahead of the Oilers with a 40-21-9 record. Now, I believe they won last night again, which is not added onto this.
mhm.
And at home, they're a crazy 26-3-4. Unreal. And on the road, they're 14-18-5. Do you believe the Kings will keep home ice advantage? That would probably be against the Oilers, right? I mean, if all things stay the same. Do you think
Mhm.
that matters to the Oilers? What do you guys think? Oh, I'm going to start with Mike.
Well, I mean, I think that the Kings probably are going to hold the home ice advantage only because with McDavid and Draisaitl both hurt, and Skinner's hurt now.
Yeah, I
Uh,
heard that. Yeah,
so I think that's going to work against the Oilers. But as far as the playoff matchup itself, yeah, the Kings are great at home, but playoffs a little bit different. Um, so if they're playing the Oilers in the first round, I still don't. I still see the Oilers as probably the favorite over between the two of them. Um, However, LA's home record is great. Whether or not they can sustain that in the playoffs, and I mean in the playoffs, I know we've seen some seasons where the road teams have won the majority of the games in the
that's
first
right.
round. So, you know, you, tough to say. I don't think the home ice advantage is as much of an advantage in the playoffs as it is in the regular season because regular season you're getting a lot of games against some weak teams too, a lot of back to backs. So in the playoffs, you don't see back to back games anymore. They're all split up. So that's the difference from regular season to playoffs.
Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, first thing, shout out to your longtime listener, Mr. Hogan, who made a comment to me when I mentioned the Kings kind of being in, middle land. Um, yeah, I was surprised when Carolina played them last week, and I just when I first saw their home record, I was like, whoa, this is interesting. I didn't realize how good they were. But yeah, with the Oilers injuries, McDavid has to be a groin pull of some kind. If it's a groin pull, he's out for 4 weeks, so he's done for the regular season. I think they said Draisaitl might be back next week, but
I heard he might
And
be back on Saturday, actually.
yeah, and then Skinner's hurt. So yeah, I think the Kings are going to hold on. But a healthy Oilers team, the Kings are in trouble. I just don't see them being able to handle them. I know they scored a bunch of goals lately, the Kings, but their
Mhm.
MO in the playoffs has been not able to score goals right when they need to, or at least outscore Edmonton. So they'll get a home ice, but if Edmonton's healthy, they're probably the favorites to take that series.
Okay, gentlemen, let's go on to our hockey profit questions where you too are the hockey profits, even though Mike has been dead wrong about the LA Kings this year. We'll get into that another night. Hey, I agreed with him, so there you go. So are you two ready for some rapid fire questions?
As long as they're a little easier than last week. Jeez, you stumped me there on the
Cam York.
jeez, most annoying player. But Bagel knew it because I've grumbled to Chris enough times about Cam York. So
I knew it.
I figured it would be some flyer or someone that was biting their
yeah,
protector or something. All right, here we go. Number one is for Chris. Hot or not? The New York Islanders are 5-2-3 in their last 10 games. That doesn't include last night's loss.
Uh, is there a lukewarm option, or
Yeah,
does
well,
that?
you can pick whatever you want. Sure.
Let's
Lukewarm?
go. Let's go
I'm thinking the
lukewarm.
same
Lukewarm.
thing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be win one, lose one, win one. You know, they're going to fight for it, but at the end of the day, they're lukewarm.
Okay, number two, Mike. Craig Button from TSN said in 2019, and yes, I saw the clip where he actually said this, that Ovechkin would break Gretzky's record in 2025. I kid you not. He said that in 2019. Mike, is Craig Button clairvoyant?
Well, you with that comment like that, you'd think he might be. Tough to say though. He's been hit or miss on some of his opinions, but I
Oh
will
yeah.
say though, when he's right, he's right. So
I mean, that's pretty amazing. And he did really say that in 2019. I almost fell over when I saw him saying that. So we'll see. It'd be funny if Ovechkin didn't break it by one goal and then Button would be wrong. So, all right, number three, Chris. The Toronto Maple Leafs have not played great their last 10 games at 5-5, but are in first place in their division. Will they win the division?
Ooh. Yeah. I'd say yes. I was shocked to see how well Tavares is doing this year. I know
He looks
before the
good.
year, yeah, I know before the year, Maple Leaf fans were like, "Let's extend him for like a 1 year for $4 million. He's got to take a pay cut." This dude's going to get paid. He's going to
Oh,
get
yeah,
paid, and because
absolutely.
you need centerman, and he's a second line centerman, and no, the Leafs can score a ton of goals. You know, does Nylander? Did he score 40 now?
Yep.
Did he get
Yeah,
40?
he
Yeah, he got 40
was
now.
40th. Yep.
Yeah, they can outscore their other issues as they're still trying to get Lawton and the Boston defenseman established into that team. But yeah, I think they'll hold off. Florida's still got, no Tkachuk and stuff, so I think they'll be able to hold on.
Okay, number four, Mike. Hot or not? Nazem Kadri, 5 goals and 1 assist in his last 5 games.
yeah, I would say so. And the reason I say that is without his production, that team's not close to a playoff spot.
Yeah, I know. He's done really well this year. He looks good.
Yeah, he's brought Huberto
Mm-hmm.
back to a certain degree. So and I think maybe they both feed off of each other, but neither one of them were great last year, but this year they seem to have gelled and got things going, and it's the only reason why Calgary's close to a playoff spot right now is because of those two guys.
All right. Number five, Chris. What player is more important to the Oilers, McDavid or Draisaitl?
No, it's McDavid. It has to be McDavid. But that's a tough question, Whitey. That's not a very fair question to ask because they're both franchise superstar players, right?
Well,
But I
Mike would
guess,
have taken that question last week. I don't think he would have thought it was tough.
but yeah, you got to go with McDavid.
All right. Number six, Mike, and I'm sure you guys will be both very glad when this is all over with. Mike, will the Flyers play better for the rest of the season now that Tortorella is gone?
Uh, they might not give up 7 goals a game consistently, but they're not going to be any better. They're going to lose. I don't know how many games they got left. 10 games, 9 games. They're going to lose at least 6 of those. At least 6 of those games. If they win 3, I'll be happy with that. The goaltending is atrocious. Um,
What?
there's teams with goalies in the AHL that could come up and do better than this. So not the Flyers though; they don't have anyone in the AHL that can come up and do better. But yeah, so if they win 3 games, that you know what, that's my guess is they'll win 3 out of the last 9, and that's optimistic. So
Okay. Well, now that that's done, is there anything else that you guys wanted to discuss tonight for tonight's episode? Chris, was there anything else you wanted to go over?
Philly might win a few more games because they do have Brad Shaw, former Hartford Whaler legend defenseman, right? So that might give them a little perk, right? A new voice in there.
Mike?
No. So one thing, yeah, that so Jay Fresh outscore chart. One thing when you do put it up, you'll notice the teams I mentioned before that are really doing well in that chart. But if you look in the middle, on the top, you're going to see the Washington Capitals and the Winnipeg Jets are kind of almost straddling the line where they're getting outchanced, but still outscoring the opposition, right?
Right, yes.
Kind of goes back to what we discussed before about, they're getting above average goaltending, both teams. They're also scoring at a higher clip than, as normal. And I'll even throw this out to you guys since I wasn't here at the start, but at the beginning of the season, did you guys have Winnipeg Jets and Washington Capitals as the top teams in each conference?
Oh, of course we did.
Exactly. So no. I think this chart kind of also shows that they're playing, above expectations. And like, I wouldn't be shocked next year if we're sitting here and we're looking at this at their 10th or 15th in the league, right? So I would just leave off and saying if I was a betting man, I wouldn't be saying these two teams are going to make the Stanley Cup Finals.
I will say before the season started, though, I did say that the Capitals, with their offseason moves that they made, were a team that had improved and was probably going to make the playoffs. With that being said, I was nowhere close to saying they'd be leading their division. So, but I factored them in to have a playoff spot, but they far exceeded that. And I mean, they've got some career years out of a lot of players there. So, and not that Ovechkin's having a career year, but he's having a bit of a resurgence over, the last couple of years. And not that he didn't play well the last couple of years, but he did have some injuries and that sort of stuff.
Right.
But this year, he, other than the one stretch where he missed like 9 games or whatever it was, he's been quite consistent. So, and the only other thing that I wanted to add on maybe a little bit is I watched the Dallas Edmonton game last night, and the Oilers goalies, like, they ran into Skinner, knocked him out of the game, and then not long after that they hit Pickard, who took over in nets and knocked him down. And it looked at that point where the game might start to get a little bit out of hand. I mean, I know Corey Perry made some comments today that he should have done something about that with the hit on Skinner. And I mean, I know Rantanen, there was no intent. They didn't call a penalty. So, but I think now after, the teams across the NHL probably have seen or heard about that type of thing happening last night. So I think any goalie contact now, there's going to be, teams that are going to take matters into their own hands. So it's going to be interesting to see over the last week, especially with, some of these teams where, their goalie is a real critical piece for the playoffs for them. So see what happens.
All right. That's pretty good. There was some other thing. There was something else I wanted to bring up, but we're quite long in the tooth for this evening. So I think we'll just leave it there and we'll talk about it next week. So like, share, and subscribe, and let us know where we went wrong, because I'm sure we went wrong in a few places tonight. And we will see you all next week. Later.
Later.
Later.